Cool. Today we're going to talk about how to build a data pipeline with Python and NPL, making this a full user app. Let's wait a few minutes still. I'm sure you're going to be interested in what I have to show you. This is useful for you. This is if you ever used a Jupyter notebook and want to convert this into something that is maintainable, usable by a program. This is useful. If you have data into data mining, if you have this trove of Python script that you don't know what to do with or how to build an application with, if you have a consultant background and want to make sure that your team and so on can also perform those tasks with the right files and so on, this is for you. We'll get there. We'll get there. Cool, let's get started. So yeah, today we're going to look at how we can turn a data pipeline in Python into a full application, backend, frontend that people can access. We're not going to cover here today how to deploy to Noumena Cloud. Happy for you to tell me in the chat if you want this. I can happily guide you there or tell you how to do this. Today, really the point is to make sure that this data pipeline that you have, that you've already implemented and that you use regularly in a different setting, that you can use this. So this is what we're going to look at today. As mentioned in the invite, we're going to start from a repository that is called NPL integration. Let me show you what that looks like. This is one of the repos that we've published as Noumena. You can see the URL here. We are at Noumena Digital/NPL integrations on GitHub. Find us there. Drop us a star if you want, if you find this is useful. We have the starter repository, which explains you how to do some interactions with a few things. Here we have NPL and Keycloak. Of course, this is our stack. Then we also have some tool to make a data pipeline out of a web app. This is TypeScript. We don't need this today, but this is here if you need it. And also then the Streamlit UI, which is still Python. So just for you, if you are used to Python, you can create UIs simply here while still staying in the same language. So we're going to look at this. Let's quickly start by cloning that one, getting that locally. I have my terminal here, going in my small repository. I can clone this repository. I don't need whatever was there before. So let's start again, cloning this repository and opening it with our favorite editor. As Noumena, we're supporting the VS Code suite with Cursor and so on, but also IntelliJ and that suite. So feel free to use our plugin that you want. Make sure that you have it installed. This is what it looks like. Make sure you have this, otherwise coding NPL will be much harder for you. So this is what this is. Drop me in the chat if there's something that is too small, too big, too loud, or too quiet. I can happily make sure that you can follow this session properly. And also please interrupt me if there's something you haven't understood or that you want explained better. Let me know. I'm looking in the chat here and there. I'll get this going. So we've cloned this repository. Let's open it. We have the same elements as before, the web app and all of this. So let's first start by removing that web app thingy that we don't need. that will increase clarity a bit for us. We'll see quickly what this is, and reviewing this will allow us to go through the repository as well. So we're gonna do this. But first, let's look at what we need. We have this data pipeline that we want, and see what we want to do with this. So let's assume that my pipeline is ready. I have this, and I need to implement this with this full application. I want to have a front end, I want to have a backend, and I want to have this data pipeline element. Those are going to be 3 different components, 3 different elements. As mentioned before, we're looking at services. Let's see what we have there, what we need. So this web app, we're going to remove it. And then we have the 3 different things that are interesting for us. Python listener, this is going to be our data pipeline tool. We're going to look at how to execute the Python elements from there. And we have our Streamlit UI element here. We're not necessarily going to use Docker for those, given that we want to run them and see them what's happening there. But the engine for sure will run with Docker there. Is that a familiar concept? Do you know Docker, all of this? Yeah. So this is what this is. We have this here. We've removed quite a few things here, I hope. No, not yet. Let's see. Anyway, let's get started with our elements. So we have in our Python listener already the setup to interact with this. Let's look at this. I'm looking here in Python listener in the streams.py. This is something that will process our architecture. If you want, you have the Streamlit UI that interacts with the engine. As a user, you want to make requests in the Streamlit UI. You want to interact with your process. You want to say, hey, you have this data pipeline that I need to run. Those are the input files. These are the output files. This is what we need to have. The engine is going to process those. This is also where the process is going to live. If you want to see the past runs, if you want to see the past inputs and outputs, this is where you're going to do this. And then we're going to add the data pipeline there. And so here we have, between those, we have user actions that are going to be HTTP calls. And in between here, we have notifications, which are server-side events. This is type of messages that travels from service to service in the backend, and we're going to process those. So this is what we want to do here. We want to listen to those stream events and make sure that we have an answer for this, and then call back the answer in the future. This is what we do here. We have the biggest function that is there. This is going to loop forever. We're getting the stream to that engine, and then we're processing all the different events. We want those command events. We want them to be. We want the notify events. We want to react if someone creates an action, a notification from NPL. Let's see how that looks like from. And then from there on, once we have this, we will manage those notifications, make sure that we receive them. For a specific type of notification, we're going to be looking at what we do with this. So if, for example, you have your process function, this is if I want to call my data pipeline, and here you very well know what you want to you really know your data pipeline yourself. You know this, and then you need to have your processing here. But this is Python. You know this. You can copy paste that in there. But how you get there and how you can answer, this is what we're going to look at. So we also need to process the parameters, and then we're going to need also to respond with the result if needed. And we're going to look at all of this. But first, let's see how we can interlace all of it together. We're coming back to our notification function here. We have defined above a few different notification type. So let's add a new one. Let's figure out what we want to do, what we want to listen to. Let's say I have a data set and I want to figure the average age out of this. That's a very simple use case. Yours is going to be more difficult, more complicated for sure, but the fundamentals are going to be there, and you're going to be able to use this to build on top of this. So I have my my element here, and I want to do this. Now just follow the same structure as the other ones, and this is going to be all fine. And we'll have this age processing request. We'll see what that corresponds to in a second. Let's do that here, and let's so we can get this going. So I want to process a specific event. So let's add it at the top. If my notification name is my age processing request, we want to call our data pipeline, and then we're just gonna have a log in there. So this is what we need to have, and this is what we're gonna be working with. This needs then to be receiving a notification thereof. And the step before this, if we look at our schema, we're processing this. Now we need to configure the engine to actually send that notification at the right time. For this, you're gonna come in the NPL part. This is the backend side where you store all your different objects, and we can create a new element, maybe a data pipeline element. This could be a process or a data object or whatever you want, and you're going to create a new NPL file for this. This is going to be the routine that you have. Just creating the objects there. See, I'm located in the package objects. This is just to reflect the folder I'm in here. It's not really important at this point. We'll see how that impacts everything else later down the road. So I want to have a new protocol that is hosting my process between my different agents, and we're going to be making sure that the events move from one place to the other. So the process owner is going to interact, and then the second element in the system that we have is that Python listener user that we want here. So that also with that construct, we're limiting the access to the process, the inputs, the outputs that we store there, to the people that we're defining in this process. The owner is going to be like you clicking on the buttons, and then also the system or the processing unit. The pipeline service, for example. And then we have this data pipeline protocol. This all works. Let's make sure that we have the right syntax there. We do have Copilot instructions. That's all fine, but that really doesn't work. Okay, too bad. I'll write all of this. So we have this data pipeline process that we want, and we can create it. We can go for this. And then one thing I also want to show you is if we have a file, what can we do with this? How can we convey that file throughout the element, throughout the pipeline? Because you likely will need a file as input to get an output there. That is something that for sure is going to happen to most of you. In NPL, this comes with the type blob. And in NPL, if you want to have a file at some point, but not at the beginning, you need to wrap it in an optional. This is the nullable type of NPL. And then a small helper function to help you create this so that you have an empty option there. It doesn't like the fact that I didn't type it yet, so let's go for this. Okay, so now we have our file. It's not used, but we know that the next action is to use a permission. Those are the different actions by the owner, for example, to submit a file. And we're just going to be setting that file to the variable that we have there. Whenever we're happy, we can also say, well, the owner can trigger the processing. This is what we're going to have. Let's not worry about requirements. And then we're going to have our notification that we meant before that is going to come in here, and that is going to be this age processing request. So I'm going to go and copy ahead this variable name here and create a notification that looks like it, so that we have our events that can be emitted. We're creating here an event that is going to go from the engine to the Python listener. I'm going to call this an age processing request, which is going to take a file as input, and that is going to return a number. This is exactly what we have there. Taking a file as input and returning a number, and I'm defining this event. So I can notify the system to do this age processing request and wait for anyone to listen to this to actually get this going. The syntax is not NPL, so let's see what we can do. If anyone in the chat knows why my autocomplete is not working and why my NPL is all over the place, let me know. That is quite annoying. I have Mons V that is saying hi. Hey Mons, nice for you to join. So we are sending this notification element here, and we can receive it on the other side. Now we also need to set up is an element to actually receive this processing request back. And once again, the syntax is a bit weird. I don't know what my editor is doing, but this is going to be here the return type. For example, here we want a number. For example, the average age, as we mentioned before. This is what we want. Yielding hi, let's wave. So that we have everyone on board. Let me know if there's something that you need better explained, and we're going to cover this. For now, we're doing our data processing pipeline protocol, where we have the possibility to store a file within this element. We're going to do this from the UI afterwards. We can trigger the processing, and we can also then receive a processing request result from the pipeline service itself. So this is what we're doing. We have all of this, and then at some point we probably also want to store the average age that at the beginning is not defined. So again, we have our optional, which is our nullable type in NPL, and we want to store this, and the average age is then stored here. If I have the this, that refers to variables on the protocol, and if I have no this, then this refers to local variables, which is why I have this there. Hey, Luke's Code, nice for you to join. Super cool. So we have this going here in NPL. We have all the different elements. One thing I also need to do is annotate all of those permissions with our special keywords at API that allows us to go from the outside in to make sure that we can call those elements there. Same on the protocol there. I'm adding this one to be able to instantiate that process, to make that data pipeline protocol instance retrievable online. Once we've done this, we will be able to look at this and list those elements in the past, as long as we don't delete our database, of course. They're going to be there, and you're going to be able to share those with your colleague, with your team, and show them later down the road as well. So we're going to have in our pipeline our inputs, we're going to have our outputs, and the request to trigger this. We'll see what happens then. Okay, so then we have, now if I come back to my diagram, I have set up this event there, I have set up the processing there, at least a bit of it, and I have seen the process here, which is the event that we have there, our data processing pipeline. So we haven't touched this part yet, and we're going to see how to do this. So this is what we have. Let's go for this. To be able to easily call permissions that we have in our protocol, what we want to do is create a few functions in Python that would allow you to make HTTP calls exactly with the right data object, exactly with the right return types, without having to worry about this. And this is something that you can do easily with NPL, because NPL allows you to generate the OpenAPI files. If you go look at the make file, this is we have a few removals here for the web app part. This seems all good. Let's get rid of all of this, and so we don't talk about this anymore. And that might be a bit too hasty. Anyway, let's leave it aside. If you look at this, you have something that is called an OpenAPI, and we can generate an OpenAPI file which is going to contain all the definitions of all of our endpoints that we want to call from the Python side. Let's go ahead and make this definition here, this OpenAPI element, and that should be leading this to the generation of a new file. Let's look at this. We now have here our data pipeline protocol that we have created before. And you can fetch the list of those protocols, those instances. We're going to do that in a second. But you can also create new ones, create data pipeline protocol. You can also, on those data protocol, fetch a specific one with a specific ID. We'll know what those the IDs are, and you can also then trigger all the different actions that we were looking at before, such as the submit file, such as the trigger processing, such as the receive processing request, and all of this. So this is all things that you can do, and that are available just for you with this one simple command that we executed here. But now this is a nice file, but this is not Python functions yet. So let's go there. Let's figure out how to do this. Back to my make file, I probably have a function for this as well. And again, in the OpenAPI world, we have, if I look at where this is, an OpenAPI generator. This is something that you can install a few ways, either through NPM, either through Brew, or other ways as well. I have installed it with NPM, so just looking at the right version of that thingy, so I have it there. And then I'm going to be able to generate the right elements if I find the right language. This is nice. I can generate some Python here, and I'm going to generate a library that is going to be called npl object lib library, so a set of functions that you can use from your Python code. And I'm going to specify where the input is. This is our file that we had just opened before, and we're going to put it at a specific place. We're going to see that in a second. I'm just going to call this function here, and it's going to do a bunch of things, and we're going to see the result. So we have this element that is processing. We see the OpenAPI generator that we were looking at a second ago, and we have all of this going on. Okay, we have something generated now. This is the object that we were generating from before. Remember this one? And so we have it here, object Python client, and this is a whole lot of things. This npl object lib now looks like Python, and this is an API client. That means we're going to do API request, which is exactly what we wanted. Remember, we want to be able to call from our Streamlit UI the npl functions easily over the HTTP. So we have this function for this now. For this, we still need to install this Python library in our virtual environment. And I hope you know what a virtual environment is anyway, because you've been working with Python. So this is something that is very useful to be able to keep your environment tidy. So let's install all of this and install this for our Streamlit UI. We have this library that we want to install here again. So we're going to be looking at installing all of this with pip within our environment. Let's go ahead with this. We have our environment here now that is being created, our venv, and see where this is leading us. Just using that for the workspace, it doesn't harm. Creating those libraries here, you recognize the pip installation of new libraries. There's quite a few things there that will allow us to run all of this. Now we can go into our Streamlit UI and look at what we want to do with this. And so now that we have here specified that at the interface between the engine and our Streamlit UI, we want to have user actions calls that are actually in the NPL objects library. We can use this, and the objective now is going to be using this from the Streamlit UI to talk to our engine. If we want to be able to talk to our engine, though, what we need to do is starting our engine. And this we usually do with Docker. So again, there's a small command here for this. You need to know them, and this is probably npl docker. I'm creating my Docker image or running it up and starting all of this. So we see now we're running our engine, we're running also a database, and we're running an IAM. An IAM is where the users are managed so that they can authenticate to the engine. Because for talking to the engine, you need to be authenticated. This is a bonus that you're getting if you're setting up your application full stack with the engine. This is you will need to have an IAM as well, but this repository provides you with one, and you can easily create users there. So now that we have this running, we will be able to go in Streamlit and run this. What we want now is run this Streamlit service and make sure that that we can modify the current example to actually implement our data pipeline. So if I go in the Streamlit section, I have a small Streamlit function as well that will allow me to run this. I'm going in my virtual environment, in my Streamlit folder, and running Streamlit. It's installing a bunch of things, making sure that everything's there. There's a bunch of dependencies, so you're not risking forgetting those, and that's all good. We see that all the web app thingies have been removed. Again, some pip work ongoing. Just going to remove this web app element from the changes so we can see what's going on. I should be careful not to push this because this is going directly to a public repository if we haven't protected this properly. I think we do. We never know. And we have our Streamlit that pops up. You see that as well. Still starting, so this is what we'll have at the moment. It's all good. So let's go back to our browser, and we have this. Here we have set up a few users for you. You can find those in the repository. We have two of them. The users are Alice and Bob, and the username and the password are the same. Really bad practice for a productive system. For us, it's not too much of a problem. So this is where we are. We have only an IOU. An IOU is a financial instrument where I owe money to you, and this is between Alice and Bob, the two users in the system at the moment. So we can play with this. But now this is not really interesting. What we want to do is create not an IOU, but this there's a processing request that we have. So we'll quickly go there. Streamlit UI, this is what we have. This is what we want to change. We have this app that we can modify to get the list of elements. You people are the Python experts, so I don't need to spend a huge amount of time on this. What is interesting here, however, is showing a bit the interaction between the Streamlit element and the data pipeline through this object there. Yeah. And this is exactly what we have here. We have this npl object lib that is used in our application to retrieve elements for now on the IOU, because this is what we had before already in our npl repository, but now we can also have this for the data pipeline. So if we want to add an element to our list, to a page, for example, the same elements here, that is something that we could be doing. As I'm very lazy and don't have any intention to send this element to production, I can also ask one of our agents to duplicate all of this for the data processing pipeline. Should be working a bit, and we'll see what happens there. Could also go through this manually, going step by step to create all of this, or modify the existing implementation. But this is something that we're gonna do. We're gonna look at exactly what we need and maybe go to a separate place while it's doing its thing and seeing the results, right? If we go back to our diagram, we have different elements. We have this aspect there. Yes, all good. We have those different aspects. We have this library to communicate with Streamlit, but now that you're mentioning it, this is something that we could also use it for calling back functions and sharing the result with the other part. So maybe we also need to put that somewhere over there on the way back. You know, if we want to submit the data pipeline, receive a processing request result, and that could be used for the same thing, huh? And this is something that we can explore at the moment. So we're gonna do the same later down the road for this Python listener. And make sure that in our stream events, in our processing here, the response is going to be using that library. We probably have an example in here as well. For example, if we want to be able to get the element, the process that we have, to get more details, and do the same later down the road. So I'm heavily going to inspire myself for that IOU element that we have there. And we also have a file example here in different scenario, probably pushing the proof or the certificate for that element, and then run the same. So we're just going to copy that part a bit, and we're going to adjust this. Of course, this is not. Let's call this a notification. It's going to be simpler. Yes, there we go. And then we have this element there, which is this data pipeline ID. And then we're getting those arguments. We can show them the same. And then the only argument that we have, position 0, is this file. So this is what we want. And then we probably want to get the data pipeline protocol entirely. And then we're getting this. See, this is a function that is called on the API. API is our client that we have generated before from the library that we have created before. We could see in the application, for example, how this is created, how this API client is. This is a client that uses the token that we've looked at before, that we got from the front end the same way here, and we were getting this. Hey, good morning, Greg. Good morning here in I'm in Central Europe. Afternoon. Where are you located? For this to be the morning. Nice to have you there. And then yes, so we have this API client there that is the usage of the streaming element, the usage of the interface between the Streamlit UI. Sorry, I was in the listener. So in between the Python listener and the engine there, we have this object library. And then this is the API client that comes with this, the wrapper for that library. Milky Way, very far away. I hope you have always the sun and a good sun over there. There is quite a few things. Nice to have you there. Never had any extraterrestrial entity on the channel before. But let's come back to our elements here. We have this API client that we can use within our listener to be able to interact with the elements that we have before. If we needed more elements from this object, maybe, for example, if there is already an average age or not, if there is more information needed, that we could fetch those as well, that we would not pass in the processing request. For our current use case, I'm not sure this is really needed. So let's come here. Same for the other one. We don't have this one, and we can process this. So we have this notification, and then same as we have a bit further above, we can also make a return statement. Something like this. We have our API where we can do on the data pipeline. We can go and apply this data pipeline response, for example. I'm not sure this is called like this. This would be a bit short. This would rather be something like data pipeline protocol. Let's look for this in, yes, in PL integrations. This is the right element. But then I probably want to look in the library folder, this one, for what the exact name of that thingy is. And I can see that somewhere I should have something that looks like a function. Let's go see that API. Yeah, surprising, I don't have the navigation to the source. We'll get there. Data pipeline processing command. This is something I should be able to find and see where this is coming from. Use this as parameter. Interesting. Oh, this is it. There. I can do a data pipeline protocol receive processing request result. Of course, if I have 2 times 3 word in the protocol name and in, or like for even here, that is going to lead to long elements. So this is what we have there, and then we want to have the response to this that we had before. So let's make sure that we remember this one. Where did I have it? No, not that one. We want to have an ID and then that thingy there. But you know what? This is more complicated than it needs to be. Let's get that going while we look at what we did before on the other side. We have this file, so we could use it in our processing element, and we could then do that. Let's come back to what we were doing before, see if the agent has completed its action. We have this element here. Oh, we have that. We can create this data pipeline now. The owner email is me, so this is Alice at example.com. Always recommend using example.com as an extension for your user. This is all nice. And then the pipeline service email, this is something that we have defined as Bob at example.com, just to have a different user, but you could have anything there really. Oh, I know what's going on. Here we have something that we still need to configure in our system. And I'm quickly going to come back to my running Streamlit element. We have a setup here that is dual, both for if you want to run this on Noumena Cloud and if you want to run this locally. So I'm going to cheat a bit and have a hybrid setup between the two, having the local service for the Docker image for the engine, which is our backend, and then also having but outside of Docker. So this is something I can do by setting the environment variable to Docker and then doing the same as before. The same thing as we just did here. So make Streamlit UI run. And then that should fix the whole thing. We're just going to have to go through this again. So we see here that we have this element. I'm not sure that this is actually going to work, but we're going to be able to fix this as we go. We're getting back into our Streamlit element. Here we have this Alice login and password. We're getting back to our pipeline. And here we need to I'm less happy with this now. So we have our NPL integrations. This is our repository that we have there, and we want to have all of this running, and this engine should be running there. But there is an unknown prototype here. So let's see which prototype we have. We have this wonderful Swagger UI, and we have something that is not this. Okay, so let's go back to our element. I can imagine that this is just a question of restarting the whole thing. And just to be sure for everything, I'm going to bring up the engine and the key cloak, provisioning, but also making sure that whatever I'm bringing up is ready and is build fresh. Yeah, this is cool. Okay, let's go for this. We have, we're just going to wait for this to be completed. This is, again, we're running our engine, the NPL engine, where the protocol that we have written before, this data pipeline protocol, is actually being used. And this is run there. This is then persisted as well in the database. And you can call API endpoints on this. So this is what we're doing here. Now that we have this running, let's go back to our Swagger UI, see if this is in better shape. Okay, we have our data pipeline protocol now, and we should be able to reach that from our Streamlit element there. Oh, and we have been able to create it. We now have an ID for this, and this is what we were seeing in the Swagger before, like this ID here, but also from the Swagger that we opened, the specification that we opened in the editor before. So now that we have this, we want to be able to play with our data pipeline. So let's see the details of that specific data pipeline. I hope that this matches in UI. I didn't check. And we see that, the owner is Alice, and the pipeline is also Alice. Did I create it like this? Or is there a small bug? Let's try it again. Here we have the data pipeline services Bob. Okay, so we should have this in a better way here, and we have now Bob. Bob will be able to listen to this. Bob is also the user that we've logged in as in our listener service. And then here I could create a file and process this and so on. So we'll be able to do that in a second. Let's see on the other side if we have our listener that is ready. So see, you know how to program in Python. You probably also know how to use an LLM. So generating that Streamlit UI was very easy. And given that we have the library already, this is even easier. Yep. So this is where we are at the moment. So we have this Streamlit UI that is done. We have used the library. We have the Zeta protocol, and now we're gonna send events over there, right? So where is our streaming element? We want to call this, and we want to see this appearing in our service. So we have our Streamlit UI running. Let's run also the backend. Again, you have all the commands that I'm running here in this make file, and this one specifically is making sure that all the dependencies are properly set, and then also afterwards making sure that we're running this Python listener streaming app that we see here. So as we saw before, fetching the authorization as Bob, and then listening to the streams, making sure that all the events are processed. We were before looking at this, the processing this unique notifications, setting this as the H processing there that we have created in our data pipeline element there. Okay, so we see that we have logged in with Bob, and so we can try to trigger this element. To be able to trigger this here and with the file, we need to have a file in there. So let's create that file and go for this. So let's create a new file and say that we want to have the a user ID, a name, and an age of people there. No, just an age. So John Doe, and John Doe is 24. And then we have Jane Doe, which is 27. So we have this file already. This is going to be coming here at the root of the folder, and we're going to be saying that this is users.csv. Okay, so we have this going on here. We see that we have highlighted this and that we recognize this as a CSV. This is all good. So let's go for this and upload that one in our UI and see what happens. What happens there? Let's find this file here. We're getting, okay, unauthorized. We have quite a tight policy here. This is set up with tokens that expire rapidly. So this is a good thing, and this is all the closer to a production setup that you would need. Let's take the other pipeline that was where Bob was listening to, and then we should be able to try this again and upload that file now successfully. Okay, so we see that we have been able to upload this file. We have here the element that has been sent. We could try to download the file back just to see if this is the same. Why is it called personal data? Is this what I uploaded? Seems went a bit fast there. No, personal data, users. I have two of them. Okay. Well, I uploaded personal data, and personal data is a similar file, maybe from a previous version. Or let's look at this. And so we have our objective was then to, if we look at our diagram, is to go from this, which we have completed, to this that we have also completed, to the Python listener that we have also completed. But now we just need to check it, right? See if that actually worked. And this is where we have run our element, and this is the pipeline that we have. So for now we have a bit of we did not recognize this event. So what event is that? Let's quickly visualize this event there. We see that we have a protocol state here, some data, some parties. So we have this data pipeline protocol. This is good. And this is a state event. So this is not the problem. This is not what we were looking for. We were looking for notification events. Oh, you know why we didn't receive anything yet? Let's come back to our data pipeline. What we've done is submit a file, and the trigger processing is in a different it's a different permission, different action that we need to do. We need to trigger this one. So let's go for this. So where would we do this? We would do this in the Streamlit file, and we would have in the app, in the detail of the pipeline, data pipeline details, we have this uploaded file, and then we would have the trigger processing. So do we have this actually already? Yeah, trigger processing. Let's go for this. And let's see what happens now. We have a small problem there, but this is something we can fix. So we see that we have now within this Python listener object, we have received this event from the UI, not doing much, not implementing much, and still being in a full app setup. And this is something we can do. So let's go see where we have this problem, notification. Maybe I need to parse this somehow. Let's see how other versions did this. See, here we have this notification, and here we have an event. Oh yes, we need to manage this one here. Notification. Okay, cool. So let's quickly run this one again. I could also avoid rebuilding the whole thing. I think this was done to make sure that we would have always the dependency up to date. So we're gonna need a second to get this going again. But this is also rather rapid. Login succeeded. Okay, so let's come back to our UI and see if we can trigger this notification again and see if we can see the result in our element. We've made progress. Now, as I was suspecting, our here data is requires to be a bit more complicated than this. So we'll see if we can fix this together. So what we're doing here is the problem that we have there is that this is a typed element, and just passing the age is not the right thing to do. So let's quickly go at the definition of this one. And make sure that we know what we have to do. So ID, this is good, and then we have this data pipeline object that we need to use. Where would that come from? Would that come from there? Does that make sense? I think that would. So let's see for this. Running it again. Now that we're not modifying the libraries anymore, maybe we can also comment this out for the future runs. I'll just have to think about putting those back if this happens. Yeah. Cool. So we have Bob that has successfully logged in again. Let's trigger the processing once more, and we have run out of time. So let's log in again. Getting back to our data pipeline, the second one that is for Bob, where we have a file already, and let's trigger this processing and see where we go. And now we have a notification age processing request, which is also not recognized, which is a bit more. No, this is acted on notification, so this is good. And then we have another state event. So what happened here, if we look at this, we have 3 different events after Bob logged in. The first event is there are a few things that are mixing here. Let me use this. Let me copy this in a file, and I'll explain what is going on there. So we have 4 elements here. The first, the arguments, is this is what we're processing, in the stream. And then we have an event, which is the protocol instance that is stored. If you have an event that is, we're changing the store, we're changing the version of it, and we're storing it again. And then we have the result that we're expecting. Oh, sorry, this is the data pipeline event called. So this is also something from our stream event there. Hey Chad, you should be paying attention to what I'm saying. This is the data pipeline called with event. This is what we have here. This is where we're getting the full notification. So we have this and dial 3. This is the notification data. And then we have the completion statement that we have also in our stream function, and then we have a state event. A state event is when we're changing data on the protocol. And this is due to the fact that we're calling back our protocol. Here we're calling back this receive processing request result on the protocol to store this age, so that we now know what the average age is. Well, for sure, our processing pipeline is not really smart, because it always says that the average age is 4, even though we haven't processed the file. We could do this together. But this is a data frame. You know what the data frame is and how Panda works. So this is something that you can very well do here. This is for you to do. But storing this is what then creates this state event, which says that we have this. So if we look at this here, we probably have somewhere the average age that is then set. So this average age is an optional. We're treating those as structs, not really important. And we see that the average age is 4. So this has worked. This comes from our engine, from our runtime where the protocol is stored. And we see that we have been able to store this. We should also be able to store this in the Streamlit UI. To see this in the Streamlit UI. Age is none. Let's refresh this page. Okay, of course I need to log in again. We have the details of that second pipeline that we have, and the average age is 4. So we see that we've been able to modify our 3 components in our system: the Streamlit UI, our engine with the data pipeline protocol, and then the listener, to all do their job to be able to process this event. And now I have this persisted data object that I could put anywhere I want. I could put that on the web. I could expose this to my lab, to my colleagues, or keep that for myself and have this nice UI to interact with the system. And most of it, as we've seen, is editable by our dear agent friends. If you want help or if you need help there, this is something you can very well do that as well. Cool. So we've been able to modify all of this, starting from this NPL integration repository and going end to end. That's cool. Is there something that you would want to know that we've rushed through and would be interesting to deep further in? Or is this something that you will be able to reproduce easily? Let me know. What's a crazy fun thing that we could be doing right now based on this? Any functionality? Well, let me know. Feel free to reach out. I'll also post the video on YouTube if you want to react there as well. You can come there, and if you have more questions, we have the community that is always available, community.noumenadigital.com. Let me post that one quickly in the chat. So if you have any questions, you can also reach out there and see if we have any people that are here ready to help you out. If you have a project also that you would want to start with this, your own pipeline that you want to implement, and you need help, let us know. If you just want to humble brag that you've been able to go through this, just like this is also the right place to do. You can also find us on Reddit. This is something where if you need support, you can get support. This is not one of the places where you're on your own. Really feel free to ask, feel free to come around and share what you've been able to do. We're gonna be there to support you whatever you do. Hey, cool chat. This was a deep exercise, packed in an hour, tight on the clock, to be able to do this from this example and being able to reproduce this for our own pipeline, going from this Streamlit UI to our Noumena runtime, the engine, and then to our data processing through the Python listener, and back to the engine with the result. This was a rush, and this was really fun. Hey, thanks.